earlier when you said statistics don't lie, right?
So
my educational background is I did a degree in maths and statistics, right?
Cool, yeah.
And one of the first things that we're taught when you look at statistics is they absolutely can lie. There's a fantastic book called How to Lie with Statistics by a woman called Hilary Duff. And she shows that often the two biggest mistakes people make when they look at statistics is they confuse causation with correlation. You are factually correct in saying that of all the noted grooming cases, Pakistani males constitute the largest demographic. But if you stop there, then you'd be basically misconstruing the next logical step after that, which is if it is Pakistani males, what's the reason why a certain number of Pakistani males are that? And is it that they're in a certain area of a certain socio-economic group? Is it that they had a certain upbringing? What are the cultural ties? And if you want to get more specific, understand that Pakistan isn't, as we've discussed before, you and I, it's not an ethnically homogenous country, right? Neither is India. So there are many cultures. So of the Pakistanis in the north, the northeast and east Midlands and the west Midlands, are they from a specific part of Pakistan? Are they from Mirpur? Or is it amongst them that have a certain religious? If it's not those things, then perhaps we can start to narrow it down and look at different underlying causes.
Well, how much you want to go turns into a microcosm going all the way down to like
that's a good discussion.
you have to stop at some point. There's a link here between all of these kind of the guys that are being statistically being arrested and being convicted. And unfortunately, the link that links them, whether they're Bengali, whether they're from Afghanistan, they are Muslim. Yeah, so hold on from a Muslim background. It doesn't, let me reframe that. That does not mean I'm going to give you an example. Say if a Sikh, like a Sikh here, they've done terrorism in Khalistan, yeah? Now, I'm not going to say those people are not Sikh, just because they're not acting like Sikhs. That's not for me to say. If they believe they're Sikhs, they believe they're Sikhs. That's not for me to say. So the same thing, I can condemn certain actions. The same way the Muslim community needs to stop doing this silly kind of like scapegoating, saying, oh, well, they're not Muslim. The problem is happening within the community. That's wrong to say. Yeah.
Now let's address it systematically. So you've identified a couple of common features, and rightly so. When you see people of a certain skin color or a religious belief, or from a community or from a city, they're going to say, why are the people who constitute this demographic repeatedly appear in our surveys? But the point is, don't stop just there. Keep going further. You made a good point where you identified a number of underlying assumptions, such as they're male. They're young. They're not typically religiously inclined, but they are part of a religious community.
Yeah, so they're part of a religious community.
So why don't we systematically look at them? So when we look at their age, we can find that they all are young males, typically between the ages of 15 to 16, up until
there's been guys in their 50s.
There's
been guys in their 50s.
But generally they're middle-aged. So we can say, that's a correct assumption and it's a correct underlying prerequisite to assess it. But then when you say, okay, their Islamic culture is part, then we have to go to the source material.
Because the thing is, I need to explain again, because there's people here that didn't hear before.
Okay, no.
The way I've looked at it, I know someone who's groomed.
He must be
and the Sikhs have been saying for years, grooming issue, she was a Sikh girl, and I know her personally, all the guys were Pakistani when she was 14, the guys were like 30. So I know the process, what they did, because I went in it. Then I heard, lots of different cases, all the same process. Then I hear about Telford, Oxford, all the same process. Hold on, somewhere, there has to be some kind of responsibility taken, Why is this particular crime happening in the exact way all around the country where people have not even met each other? So they don't know each other. So why are they behaving that way? I believe, and I said it's not Muslim. A pious Muslim is ain't gonna walk around the street, raping girls. Obviously not. That's not gonna happen.
So we've established Muslim culture, Islam doesn't fit into that narrative.
But this is what I tried to explain before. There is a toxic mix, of Punjabi, Southeast Asian misogynistic culture, which is also permeates, which even permeates through the Sikh culture, through anyone from Punjab knows how bad it is. There's an honour culture that people don't talk about anything, so they hide it so you can't resolve the issue. What I'm saying, once you mix that with a culture, like I said to you, that something could be good, can you agree with me? Something can be good, but it can have bad consequences.
Yeah, I see what you're
So, like I said, I gave the example of a priest, a Catholic priest, who, if you think about being celibate, it's actually a very difficult thing to do.
Let me jump in.
And it's something that you could actually say is praiseworthy, that someone could control their lust. But they become so deviant that for hundreds of years they've been abusing boys. That's what's happening. So they have to release it. They're not practicing, but what I'm saying, they have become deviant. So what I'm saying is, hold on, I need to finish my point. What I'm saying is, when you're telling a community, which is something that's good, I believe in modesty myself. You're saying don't dress in a particular way, cover yourself, don't look into their eyes, lower your gaze, don't shake their hands. Women should be separate from men, blah blah, and all of this kind of stuff. Then you come to a country where it's nothing like that. I think the West is quite immoral, in my opinion. Personally. But we're here, and so then you're seeing girls behaving in a completely opposite manner. What do you think that message sends to the guys? So the guy, hold on, I need to finish. So the guys will go and say, all right, this is where the toxic mix of the West comes in, about alcohol and all of that. So they're looking at these girls saying, all right, we're being told that you've got to behave in a particular manner. When they don't, there could be a negative consequence of the guys thinking these girls are sluts, they're not worthy, and so, all right, we can do what we want. Would that be a possibility?
No, I have to address this. Because you made a...
Go. So, it was a monologue.
No, that's fine. It's okay. You got to pour your heart out, and you're going to say a lot of things. So sometimes it's not good to just stand for yourself anyway. But now you got to give me that same liberty as well, so I can address. So now that you made a couple of points,
you need to go to the side.
Observationally, some of the points you have made are entirely correct. They're factual statements. No one here denies that the majority of these youths are Pakistani. And like I said, let's get more sophisticated with our argument. To be able to address the issue, you need to be able to ask, not that, identify that it's happening, but why it's happening, right? We all agree prevention is better than the cure. None of us would rather get sick, get the medicine, rather avoid the illness altogether. So let's get more sophisticated here, right? So now we've identified that they're Pakistani. One of the underlying assumptions you made, it might have been a toxic mix of Islamic culture, even if it's a toxic mix.
And Punjabi
culture, right? So one of the things that you identified is that a lot of these guys came from abroad, from conservative environments. They see the comparatively liberal, more progressive way that males and females interact. Fair enough. The point is that statistically looking at this, the reality is that that argument would make perfect sense and would be correct if they were the generation above you and I. First generation Asians. The guys who are here are second and third generation Asians. They are British, just as British as as this guy, right? Point is that those cultural inferences that you made in order to substantiate your point, they're correct if the substrata of the population matched the...
You do know grooming has been happening since the 80s. I know people from my community that happened in the 80s.
But they're still second and third generation.
Most of them come in the 70s. So they're going to still be first generation. I know of guys that come in the 70s and they were doing this. The Sikhs have been saying it for ages. And I'm not trying to demonize anyone, but the problem is the Sikhs are at fault as well because we got an honour culture that we didn't report to the police. We feel too embarrassed, so all of us were like kind of to blame in a way because we're saying that we don't want to go.
But when we look at statistics, right, we realise that what is reported isn't all of that is reported, right? As you and I are both from Punjabi culture, right? We realise that
cousin, exactly. I'm going to bring a picture.
But I'm Pakistani, 100%. All the way.
Exactly. Look, you come from Amritsar. So my side of the border, man. The real Punjab. I'm going to check.
Now listen. So the point is that we have to be more sophisticated, right? So we can't just say, oh, they're of a certain community because. The reality is, if you want to look at all the underlying factors, the most common and consistent factor is the socio-economic background of these people. They are poor, they're male, they don't have a extended family or a nuclear family set up, and on top of that, they don't have that communal network.
Where do you get this information from? Because you're making quite a bold statement about a group of people that you don't know nothing about.
Yeah, so I went to university in the East.
No, but you need to tell me where you got that information from. Because I could give you statistics about type 1, We know that in terms of type 2, sexual assault, which is against type 2 is mainly white Caucasian men. We know that, it's a prevalent within their community, and they admit that, and that is basically when somebody is actually attracted to kids. Type 1, which is happening within the Pakistani Muslim community of sexual grooming, is not about paedophilia. It's about vulnerability of girls. So the girl could be 30, but the point is if she's vulnerable, they're going to go for her. It just happens to be that younger girls, are more vulnerable.
Okay, so
within that type 1 category, we could say in type 2 category that 95% are white Caucasian males, and they can say that it's a big problem within their community.
But the problem is that's never a narrative. I've got
I need to finish my one sentence. Then you go into type 1, which is sexual grooming, and that's 85% is from Pakistani Muslim or people from Afghan or any kind of Muslim background, and they only make up 4% of the population. There's a massive problem in the correlation between the two, and you can't just blame that on demographics and the.
No one's denying the reality of those numbers. That's not the point I've ever made. My concern is that the logical conclusion people draw from this, the inferences that they make, is that it is because people are Pakistani that they're doing these problems.
So why do Sikhs not doing large scale?
So let me just extend that argument.
We need to ask this question. Hold on. I need to ask this question.
But you talk a lot. I have to make my complete point. So because that's a concern of the rhetoric that people use when they see a certain statistic or they see an occurrence and they draw a conclusion from that, it builds a narrative, and that narrative is often more counterproductive than it's productive. I'll give you an example, right? Of the majority of people who go from Western countries, in particular Europe and North America, who go to Southeast Asia like Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and facilitate the sex trade and take part in the trafficking. But it's never. But this You have to, the logical conclusion is The point is that the narrative never is peddled. Why is it middle-aged white men? That's the concern. It's not that it's happening. People aren't looking at what their race or their background is. But it is. But it is the case when it's Pakistani. So why can't we be more sophisticated?
We have. All right. When you got the white indigenous population, which is making up 90-something%.
Excuse me, just quickly. I'll come back to it.
It's making up 90% of the UK. You can't separate every single one. When you're having a population of 4% committing 85% of a crime, remember, I am Sikh here, I'm from the Punjab. Most Pakistanis here are from the Punjab. We used to live together, so genetically, we're very similar. But we have a massive difference in terms of the criminality, in terms of street grooming. Why are Sikhs who you said that people are, in terms of their circumstances, are, maybe poor, impoverished. Why are Sikhs not doing this in a mass scale? In a mass scale when they're impoverished as well?
Would you agree that Pakistani Muslims...
No, but you need to answer because you put out a claim that is unsubstantiated, because I've not seen any kind of evidence that the reason why people groom is because they're poor or they're in a difficult situation.
The evidence that they're poor is that when you look at a selection of data, right, you can't look at the most obvious thing.
So I'm going to ask you, why do Sikhs who are not poor not groom? So you've got to ask yourself, we are racially the same. You look exactly like my cousin, but you're Pakistani. Exactly. What's the connection then? What I'm trying to say that we're racially the same. One group is not doing something. I'll give the analogy again. If I told you that there's a crime of 65% of Sikhs are stealing apples. We only make. Then why are Sikhs? Hold on. Why are Sikhs? You need to figure out why are the Sikhs stealing the apples. You can't ignore that. It's a fact.
My response is that you have to be more educated and edifying in your approach to that. You can't take the most surface level comparison and say because I've identified that is the sole reason.
But you've got to sometimes simplify something to solve the problem. You can't go into a microcosm. They're from that background. They're from this background. They're from that background.
The concern with oversimplifying is that it tars such a broad brush that a lot of people who are completely innocent get caught up into it. I appreciate the feasibility that you endeavor to go towards, but the problem is that's like saying this brother over here is black. A lot of knife crime involves black people, so it might not be him, but let's just have a look at all black people.
I disagree with that.
I know you do, and I don't doubt that, but I'm just saying the way in which your argument is structured, the next step someone after you will take it in that direction.
I want to clarify something. A lot of people think I hate Muslims. I don't. I'm frustrated. And rightfully so. So are we. There's a problem. When I'm walking down the road, do you think people can tell the difference between me and an Arab or something? They just think we all look the same. The other problem is I've experienced the grooming situation firsthand, and the Sikhs have since the 80s, and we've been banging our heads over and over again. And the thing is, the Muslim community or the Pakistani community has not taken responsibility. Until you take responsibility, the situation will just blow up at some point. You've got to say, look, all right, there's no point going into the minuscule kind of amount of, what is the reason why it's happening. We just know 85% of a particular community, in terms of conviction rates, are just 4% of the population. There's a massive difference in terms of the proportions between the two. And all you have to do now is to police your own community. Because what's going to happen, I'm going to be honest with you, I think people will start policing your community. What do you want to do, sort your own problem out, or do you want other people coming in to sort the problem out?
No, I completely understand where you're coming from. The point is, no one's, first of all, it's not some collective scandal whereby the Pakistanis...
Can I say something as a total non-part? I see your point totally. but he's absolutely right. The Muslim population have to address it. I'm Irish, okay, from Belfast. One peculiarity about Belfast is there's next to no street crime. Next to no street crime, as in muggings, any of this sexual shit and all that. You know why? Do you know why? No. Do you know why? Because the perpetrators, right, I hate to say this, get kneecapped or shot in the face. You repeat that 6 times, it changes behaviour. Changing behaviour. All these things need to be about affecting behavioural change. So you repeat that ad infinitum, the problem will stop. The problem will stop.
But no one knows.
Guys,
No one knows who is on the ground.
Hold on. There's whole families. I know.
If we did know, we'd condemn it.
Hold on. I know of whole families, like brothers, like 4 or 5 brothers doing it. Uncles with them.
Yeah.
They know. They're not telling their wives, but they're talking to each other. These restaurant owners, you know. I'm saying you're already on it, but the thing is, they know what's going on, And all I'm saying is that I'm concerned for the Muslim community as well, in the Pakistani community, because if they don't start policing it, things will explode. Because people will start, like the Sikhs here, there's a couple of cases that Sikhs have gone to prison here because the police won't do nothing about the grooming of their girls.
Earlier,
so they have to take the law into their own hands.
Earlier, Saracen listed a number of charities which are Muslim-oriented, which are addressing this problem. What about those cases?
Well, Sikhs have got some as well. SAS.
And I'm fantastically, I'm in support of all these organisations and initiatives that are seeking to address these societal ills that we have. But the point is, if your issue is why is it not happening, a brother just came a few minutes ago and showed you that they are, but you just don't know.
I know, but the problem
but
is,
it's all give and take, and all.
The problem is, you're unfortunately, whether you like this or not, it's just a fact. To the wider public, the wider UK, they don't think that this situation has been taken seriously by the Pakistani or Muslim community.
Look,
whether they are or not is irrelevant. It's what the perception is.
Some of the largest Pakistani communities are in London, are in Walthamstow, in Redbridge, in Newham, right? And I think there's a larger in Southwark as well. I think, right? So in these greater boroughs of London, where you have a large number of Muslims who are relatively, on average, more affluent and more educated, they're just as Pakistani as their cousins up north. Why is grooming not?
Well, I could ask you the same question.
But that's
you have a similar situation. There are Sikhs in areas that are not. Do you understand? You can go through lots of examples, but the point is the statistics here. Your community is being locked up for this. It's ruining lives. Not only ruining the girls' lives, you're ruining the families' lives. The guys are going to prison. They can never get that off their state. So until that problem is addressed, openly and honestly, it will never ever go away.
But it's leading to a witch hunt. That's the thing.
What the thing is,
random Pakistani men, they're being accused. You're a paedophile, and I don't think because he's saying there's other stuff that needs to be.
But this is what I'm saying. When things are not taken serious and the police are at fault as well, we've experienced it. When you go to the police, you say there's a problem. They say no. It's a cultural thing. So it becomes problematic because the police have ignored it. So they're to blame as well. But at this precise moment, what I'm trying to say is that it needs to be tackled, whether you like it or not, head on. Because otherwise, what's going to happen? You're going to have obviously you're going to have the vigilantes like Tommy Robinsingh, all their crew coming down and starting to sort it out themselves. What would you rather do?
Of course, I agree with it. But the thing is, they're tarnishing those guys, far right guys. They're making a witch hunt against all Pakistani girls, and their followers are believing that kind of rhetoric, and they're saying to random Pakistani men, pedo. And I've seen
I don't agree with that. But I'm saying that because it's been festering for such a long time now, that the problem needs to be tackled on with no PC. Take the political correctness out. Just look at the problem, as what. Well, that's why I give the analogy or the comparison of if I told you that 65% of the crime of stealing apples, it was done by 1% of the population who are Sikhs, you would ask why are Sikhs stealing apples? You need to find the root cause of that problem.
I think we've already made it.
We've done it. So
I appreciate it. And hopefully
I'm gonna bring my cousin's picture. This guy is like identical, like twin.
No.
I don't like arguing.
We'll have another discussion later, and hopefully we can,
definitely.
we'll keep adding to our understanding of each other.
Don't take it personally.
No, never.
When I'm talking to you, I'm not talking to you.